मेरा माइक ऑन करो तुम जीवन में
सनी को म्यूट कर दें।
Assalamu alaikum everyone. My name is Umaima Muzammil and I'm working as Deputy Manager Medical Affairs and Pharmacy Services in PharmEvo. A very warm welcome to all of you, to all the pharmacists who are working across the globe and fighting against COVID-19. As of May 4th, 2020, more than 2 million people worldwide have been diagnosed with COVID-19. This pandemic is the biggest health challenge the world has ever faced, and it's in the recent memory. Every policy, every treatment, SOP developed becomes outdated the next day. The humans are evolving, and so are the professionals. We are living in an unprecedented time and an unprecedented situation. And this is a time we need to show that our global community is there for each other and care for each other. Without further delay, I would like to hand over the session to Dr. Farooq Malik, a very dear pharmacist of ours who's in France. He's going to initiate the proceedings of this session. And before I do that, let me brief his introduction. He's currently working as a Chief Consulting Officer, Centre of France. He's MPharm from UK, MPH from France, and he has done his PhD in pharmacoepidemiology and pharmacoregionals. So I hand it over to Farooq. You can continue from here. And before I do that, would like to thank all the invitees and the participants and the speakers who are here on behalf of my department and PharmEvo. So I hand it over to Farooq now.
Hello and Assalamu alaikum. Welcome everyone to this second live session, Beyond the Pills. And thank you for your kind introduction, Umaima. Today, we bring you a more global perspective from pharmacists battling this COVID pandemic around the world. Following the first session, that was a success with a group of pharmacists from Canada, UK, Colombia, and Pakistan. We will have a perspective from the US, the hardest hit country by this pandemic as of today. And also from Sri Lanka and two fellow pharmacists from AKUH and Civil Hospital Karachi. Let me just introduce you to the speakers today. From the US, we have Mr. Saad Kazmi. He's a registered pharmacist in the state of Texas, and he also holds an MBA. His current position is a pharmacist in charge, director at Walmart, and he has had an experience of over 20 years in oncology and community pharmacy. From the AKUH Karachi, Pakistan, we have Mr. Umar Ali Khan, who's a fellow pharmacist and has an MBA in finance as well. His current position is business manager pharmacy for on-campus operations and outreach programs. He's also the project lead for barcoded medication administration at AKUH. From Sri Lanka, we are fortunate to be joined by Kelum Jimendra Jayasuriya. He's a pharmacist with an MBA and currently undertaking his PhD. He will bring us a very unique perspective as he's a group manager of pharmacy operations in Astri Health, which is a group of 6 hospitals in Sri Lanka. He also lectures and consults in pharmacy practice at the university in Sri Lanka. Finally, we have Dr. Sani Mohyuddin from Civil Hospital Karachi, who's a pharmacist with a master's in pharmacology and currently works as intensive care pharmacist at the Civil Hospital. Now, a recorded version of this session will be available as soon as we finish here. I'd like to welcome everyone again, and we'd love to hear from you, as your questions will help us better understand the topic that we will be discussing today, or all the comments that we'll be having from our speakers. As Umaima said, this pandemic already into its 5th month, more than 210 countries affected, huge death toll, nearly reaching about 250,000. Healthcare systems across the world have been tested for their durability and endurance in many different ways that they would have expected. In some areas, nevertheless, the cases and the deaths are not as much as compared to the others. So let me just give you an example. In the 53 African Union member states, interestingly, they've only all of them together have only reported 43,000 cases, and with less than 2,000 deaths as of today. The frontline fighters' role of all the physicians, pharmacists, nurses have been extremely important, and their role in containment and management of these patients has been appreciated by various heads of the states around the world. Now, let me just start from the US with Mr. Saad Kazmi, and I'm gonna, ask him about his opinion during this pandemic. Did the community pharmacy play any specifically different role, and how did the non-pharmaceutical interventions were implemented in his state of Texas? And also, were there any unusual rise in medications demand like hydroxychloroquine and azithromycin, as they were pitched to be the magic treatment of this COVID-19? And also, if he can add, if there were any specific drug shortages that he would have experienced during these last 4 months.
So, Assalamu alaikum Farrukh and everybody else. Thank you for the opportunity to be a part of a global understanding that what we are going through. So in the United States, in past 20 years, since I've been practicing pharmacy, pharmacist role has evolved. In the beginning, just to give you a small example, is that pharmacist used to be just like anywhere else, a part of the community, but not a part of the medical team, let's say in an institution. But I have seen, things evolve. So I have experience in hospital pharmacy as well. And now we are a part of a larger group that consists of not only doctors, but also nurse practitioner, physician assistant, and pharmacists that take part in going through different rounds in the hospital. So we are actively out there, in institutions and as well as in community pharmacy. So interestingly enough, in last 5 or 6 consecutive years, the profession of pharmacy has become the most honest and ethical, according to a Gallup survey. So, just to give you an idea, that pharmacist has been looked up as the most trusted person when it comes to the healthcare profession. So anybody needs help, they pick up the phone because they know that pharmacist is only a phone call away. They cannot get a hold of their doctor, they cannot get a hold of their nurses, but pharmacist is only a phone call away. So, when all of this started, it has gone through a lot of changes in past 2 months, but at the same time, that trust is strengthened within the community, and people are even asking questions that are not only to address the medical advice, but also in general, because people is staying within their 4 walls has increased the demand of their personal consultation and the understanding of what they're going through. So as far as COVID-19 is, just to give you an example, that within the pharmacies now we see these sneeze guards have put up now. So it's like a plastic or a glass shield now that has covered your whole pharmacy. So the windows where we used to talk to people and consult without any hindrance, now it's been covered with a glass shield, which I think it's a tremendous change. So the practice itself has changed, the communication has changed, but I think it has changed for the betterment of people understanding that what they're going through and what type of precautions they have to take. 2 questions have been asked most, that number 1, when will there be enough testing available. So in the state of Texas, Walmart just started testing people in their parking lots. So Walmart has, you probably already know, huge parking lots. So there is a drive-through testing that has just recently started free of cost. So things that are not being addressed directly, for one or two political reasons, they are being addressed through independent companies and entities like Walmart itself. And the second question has to do with the vaccine availability. And of course, as you all know, that it's not just months, maybe years away. So, and as far as to your second question, and I would like to be short and brief, that there were a couple of I would say week that we had a tremendous increase in the demand of chloroquine, hydroxychloroquine specific, and azithromycin. So state boards came down, State Board of Pharmacy came down really quickly to make sure that we don't deplete our supply. And they had started asking from the prescribers to specify the indication and limit the quantity. So that kind of saved our lives, and also, our supplies did not deplete.
Right. Thank you very much for your answers and explanation on how the situation has been at your end. Let me just go to Umar at AKUH. Umar, AKUH, as one of the oldest and more established institution with hospital pharmacy in the country. So, my question is, what major COVID specific or otherwise steps were taken to encounter, these difficult times? And you, as a member, a key member of the team of pharmacy, what was your biggest challenge that you faced or your team faced as frontline pharmacists? And again, the same question to you as well. Was there any decision making that was difficult for this chloroquine and hydroxychloroquine and azithromycin combination that was pitched, in the context of AKUH, which has a more established hospital pharmacy in the country? Umar, we cannot hear you. You have to unmute.
Can you hear me? Yes. Okay. So, Assalamu alaikum, Farooq and everybody all. Thank you very much for inviting and providing the opportunity to represent myself on this platform of global awareness regarding the COVID. As Mr. Kazmi was saying, we cannot compare Pakistan with maybe UK or USA. The profession of pharmacy in Pakistan, the acceptance of pharmacy as the bigger part of the medical team is far from the mentioned countries. But still, we are trying hard at AKUH. We are trying hard to become a core part of the greater, the medical team as advisors of drugs, as drug experts. So if I can go to your questions, the main measures, if I can summarize the main measures we took during COVID, I can use 3 S's. First of all, safe, sustain, and support. First priority was to save ourselves, our staff, our patients, coming to the pharmacies from the exposure. Various things were done, as Mr. Kazmi was saying, in England and in USA, we have seen the sneeze protective sheets. So most of our pharmacies are sneeze protective, but, we moved, as per the guideline, we moved the queuing machines outside. There was spacing markers in the pharmacies for, social distancing to make sure appropriate usage of the PPEs as per the recommendation in various areas of inpatient, outpatient oncology, and various other pharmacies. So first priority was to save our staff and colleagues and the patients visiting the pharmacies. The second part was how to sustain our pharmacy operation, our services. That was the most important part, because COVID, we have to learn, as Mr. we were discussing earlier, the peak is not even near. It will definitely be achieved someday, but we are still progressing. If I talk about the spread, so we have to learn to live with COVID. So there should be measures to sustain the services of pharmacy across the country, across the city, and across the the network. So what we do, we have introduced a pharmacy-led home delivery system, definitely to manage the needs, as the most of the people in Karachi especially were in lockdown. We have started a home-based vaccination service because initially during the time of the pandemic, people were thinking that this will subside maybe in few weeks, but as they realized that this will go on maybe till the end of the year. So there was a big demand of vaccination, but the parents were reluctant to come to pharmacies because they think going to the hospital is very dangerous in this pandemic. So we have started a home-based vaccination service of EPI and all the other vaccination. So that's what we did. We also have tele-counseling sessions where we call the patients based on their medication needs and refill dates. So these are the things we are doing. We are also thinking of commissioning a drive-through pharmacy, because in Pakistan, the visiting a hospital, government hospital, private sector is a big issue, a big taboo. So we are working on it towards making a drive-through pharmacy. Also, you also asked about the medication demand. Definitely, as Mr. Kazmi said, initially we had lots of requests regarding SCQ and chloroquine, and also the vaccination. Initially, there was a big trend of vaccinating against pneumonia in Pakistan. There were many queries. People were asking, okay, if you get the pneumonia vaccine, you will be somehow immune to the COVID virus. But that concept also went out. Also, the last question was you asked about the 3 major steps we took against the COVID, also the medication demand, and the most important thing, how can we support? So the third S I used, the first S was safe, how to save ourselves, how to sustain the services, and how to support. So Aga Khan under the oversight of Pharmacy and Therapeutic Committee, we have commissioned a special COVID therapeutic subcommittee where we are working with all the ID consultants in providing expert opinion and oversight of various experimental treatments currently going on across the world and in Aga Khan. So that's the biggest thing we are doing as drug expert. We have a special subcommittee comprising of pharmacists, physicians, and nearly all the ID physicians. So we are testing currently number of experimental therapies. We have also written to DRAP to import certain therapies currently in practice in China and USA, which are not registered in Pakistan, to import it. So these things we are doing in this pandemic from Aga Khan Pharmacy Department.
Right. Thank you very much for explaining what Aga Khan and how Aga Khan has been involved with the patients. Let me just go to our next speaker, Kilum Jayasuriya in Sri Lanka. And he has this, despite the fact that, Sri Lanka is one of those countries which has not been hit really hard compared to its neighbors. And as of today, I checked, just before starting this session, there are only 718 confirmed cases and 7 deaths so far, compared to what's happening, to its neighbors. And Kilum, working for a group of hospitals which are JCI accredited. So my question to you, Kilum, would be, managing the pharmacy operations in these 6 hospitals, it seems to be quite a large operation. So what do you think were the biggest challenges in pharmacy operations specifically, as logistically speaking, or whatever that has happened has been happening at the dispensing counter? And also, if you could just share with us, were there any specific steps that the Department of Pharmacy exclusively took to control the viral spread, that was going around in Sri Lanka? And again, were there any specific drug shortages that were experienced?
Yeah, Ivan, good afternoon and good morning to all in the US, and also Assalamu alaikum for all my Pakistani friends. As Dr. Farooq asked, because we are, not that we are happy, but at the moment, I think we were in the last few weeks, we were in the peak of COVID patients, but fortunately, we're only 7 deaths. So looking at the mortality rate, which is just below 1%. So I think the citizens of Sri Lanka can be at least feel like we are safe. But I wish even our neighboring countries, Pakistan, India, we all right should be in the safe mode very soon. And yes, the biggest challenge would be big hospitals situated in 4 different districts, where even where at the moment few of our hospitals situated in Kandy, Mathura, and Gold doesn't have curfew, but in Colombo, 3 hospitals we are stuck with the curfew. So the biggest challenge was like how to get this staff transported, because even transporting from one district to other district also has been controlled by the government. So it has been a big challenge. So and also I should mention here, because I should be very thankful for our senior management, because even before the country has decided to go for a lockdown, about I think 1 week or maybe 5 days before that, we were just discussing what we would do if the country goes for a lockdown. So, and we have actually list down the strategy on what we are going to do. And of course, some of the decisions were taken before the country has, call it for a lockdown. So I think that makes a lot of kind of preventive measures to us to start, being very proactive. So I should thank our CEO and chairman here who has taken steps, because for our 5 hospitals, I would say even the face mask, if you say, because I think WHO was telling at that time not to wear face, very correctly said it's our staff, we should, internal customers and external customers both, we have to make protective. So it's our utility. So being a private hospital, it's a huge cost, and the cost of the face mask, which was 4 rupees, under 4 rupees, has become 85 rupees as soon as this COVID has hit the country. So it has been a big challenge. And also again, the accommodation and the food supply, because because I think ASIR is the only hospitals in Sri Lanka to practice clinical pharmacy. In 4 of our hospitals, we do practice clinical pharmacy as a formality under the accreditations from ACHSI and JCI. So, but unfortunately, most of the clinical pharmacists couldn't attend, and I think most of them are fresh graduates, so their parents were really worrying. So they were worrying to go to the boards. It's not a positive sign, but I want to mention here, because I think as pharmacists, if we are in this profession, we should not go back, because this is a moment where people need our help. We can't say during the COVID, we can't reconcile drugs, or, we can't look for drug interactions. So I think clinical pharmacists has to continue in their work. I'm sure Mr. Said might, because in US, there might be a lot of clinical pharmacists there. As I said, the cost also has become a challenge for all of us, and also the inventory, because especially our cardiac cases, the neuro cases, all the surgeries, planned surgeries, it has come down by a huge margin. So, but most of the inventories which are purchased already, it's become non-moving at the moment. So it was a decision, but we can't return them as well. So it's a huge kind of a burden at the moment, even for us, because we are keeping a kind of a very significant amount of inventory at the moment. Actually, I think I heard from US also, we took the same initiative where, because WHO says under good pharmacy practice, don't have the glass barriers, glass enclosures, because you have to communicate with the patients. But at the moment, we are back to our old method of kind of dispensing. We put some transparent, like it's not glass, but kind of a material where it's only through a small kind of a window we communicate to the patients at the moment. And all the pharmacies are given all the PPEs, especially with the mask and gloves, and who are on the dispensing has also given a face shield if people are scared. And we have to make sure we roster them in such a way people come, because accommodation is given from the management from the hospital itself. So because our in-house patient count has come down, because as the regulations from the government, we are not allowed to take in any suspicious patient for COVID. So we also introduced telemedicine. I think FAMU has done this sometimes back, I remember. So telemedicine is now in action. So people doesn't have to, because people from the other districts even can now channel patients, channel doctors who are in Colombo, who are the veteran doctors. So because of that, a lot of patients coming in to the walk-in customers has been reduced. So also, government has taken initiative. More than 1,000 pharmacists in the country has been allowed to do the drug delivery, which is even for our city health. It was a new initiative. We had no experience, but I'm very proud to say that because of this teamwork with our team, more than 250 staff and 68 pharmacists in my 6 hospitals, we were able to deliver drugs from all our 6 hospitals. So actually, last month alone, we have done almost 800 plus deliveries. So it's I think it's a huge kind of it has come as very positive, I think, to all of us. And also we have allowed the patients to do the pickups. And we do triage at every each hospital. There's only one access, even for the consultants, even for the doctors. They should come through one entrance where everybody is checked for their temperature. And we make sure that everybody who just walks in from our entrance is, check for all these initiatives, so corrective measures. And so just about 2 weeks back, we have introduced some kind of stress release things also for our staff. We have, each hospital, we have given them some karaoke kind of a session, but make sure that we do the social distancing. And even the all the mics also has been washed, with the sterilized after every singer. So I think it's make some kind of initiative done by the management. Also, we actually we have given them free accommodation, as I told you before. Even the people who are in hostels, we have cut down their monthly rentals for the hostel. So it has become kind of motivating for the staff just to work and comfort duty. Even for some pharmacists, I think parents are not allowing, or parents are really worrying that they might get contaminated. But I'm really happy about my team, that I think almost more than 90% has reported to work. In terms of the last question, Dr. Farooq, I think because except few, there's no big shortage on medicine in our country. But unfortunately, some narcotics which we really depend on from getting from abroad, especially morphine and fentanyl, currently it's kind of a shortage. But as I said, there are only few surgeries at the moment, so I think we hope we should be able to manage until we get our fresh stocks very soon. So all around, I think countries in terms of COVID protection or COVID, battling for this COVID, I think we are pretty in a good kind of a position. Especially, I should thank all the pharmacists worldwide, because I know I've met many pharmacists in Pakistan. I've seen their experience, knowledge, right? Even I visited Aga Khan Hospital. So I wish everybody, right, good health and stay safe, right? Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much for sharing, what you guys have been doing in your hospitals. And yes, as you've explained, this is something that was, you can't have a preparation. Well, you can have a preparation to a certain extent, but the way this pandemic kind of hit the world, many countries, even with the best of healthcare systems, weren't really prepared for it, or were not prepared to that extent, that they had to endure. And let me just go to Sunny Muhyiddin now, who works as an intensive care pharmacist at Civil Hospital. And Civil Hospital being one of the largest tertiary hospitals in the southern province of Pakistan, Sindh. So they've been involved in receiving a lot of patients which are Corona specific. Now, Sunny, what do you think with the COVID cases rising every day in the city of Karachi, and you working as an intensive care pharmacist? What are the most challenging decisions that you guys have to make, during these times? Also, how pharmacists have stepped up to this challenge in this largest tertiary care hospital? And also, if you could just add how frequent the pharmacy staff has been tested, so to speak, and what specific precautions you guys have taken to protect the pharmacy staff and the healthcare workforce in general.
Thank you, Farooq. Assalamu alaikum to everyone. I think so. Saad Kazmi Saab, Umar, and Kelam did a very well brief about the COVID and how they are taking the measures in their scenarios. But in the mean, when I am listening them, a new word originate in my mind that is we called as it as a phygitality. Phygitality means the pharmacists are at towards the physical end, supporting the healthcare provider and a digital scenario as well in this COVID-19 pandemic. They are delivering medicines via e-commerce, via telemedicine support, and every pharmacist who are working in this scenario are doing a very great job. But being as an intensive care pharmacist and working with the largest tertiary care hospital of the Sindh, a 1700 bedded hospital, we have faced a lot of challenges in the initial phase. But as I am working with the supply chain team and the intensive care team as well. So in supply chain, we have took some measures, and the intensive care, we have taken some decisions. In supply chain perspective, when this pandemic is in Iran, so we list out what are the essential needs of the healthcare provider that should be ensured to available for the healthcare team. That is, first we are working with the PPEs. What are the basic PPEs that we need? And PPEs means gown, the Tyvek suit, the N95 mask, face shield. Just like Kalam said, 4 rupees mask cost 85 when this pandemic comes to the Sri Lanka. Same scenario in the Pakistan. Shortages of these things, a face mask, sanitizer, and lots of things are unavailable. So what we did when this is in Iran, we have procured lots of N95 masks to our healthcare provider to support when this comes to the Pakistan, as we are expecting that this will reaches in Pakistan soon. So we did this in the initial phase, and still now we have with all PPEs resources available for the doctors, paramedics, nursing who are the front line to treating the COVID-19. Initially, we are ensuring the availability of the all medicines that is need to treat the COVID-19, like SCQ. SCQ is the need. Someone told SCQ is treating the COVID-19 and the patient will be fine. So we are procuring SCQ that is freely available for in our hospital. And Arbidol is a new drug that feel like an antiviral and an anti-inflammatory drugs. So that we are getting that drug from the Ministry of Health, and we are using in some hospitals and seeing the results. Some antibiotics like everyone is saying azithromycin, fluoroquinolones, moxigate like, and levofloxacin shows a very good result in treating these kind of patients. In IV lines, we have defined PIP test, and we have managed. Beside these, we are involved in creating some SOPs that are basically involved in treating SOPs for the medication management. Like I myself involved with the intensive care team, an intensivist, an anesthetist, and infectious control team who are directly involved with these treating these patients. We are making initially some SOPs like what are the protocols for the ICU admissions, what are the protocols for treating the treatment plan, how we can PPEs, how we can effectively use the PPEs, how the pharmacy will manage the whole operation, the medication from pharmacy till the ward and the disposal as well. And this whole scenario, we feel like that in the initial phase, sanitizer is not available in the whole hospital. The vendor is not going to stock up we can't supply the stocks. So what we did, being as a largest tertiary care hospital pharmacist, we are making a sanitizer which is based on 75% IPA volume by volume in our compounding style zone, and help the all healthcare provider who are in the front liner to treating with this COVID pandemic. And that plan, I think so, it's a very successful and appreciating in everywhere in the hospital, because if something is not available and we are supporting in that phase, that is very good for the pharmacy. We are also making some policies for the medication, like for isolation wards, for ICUs, for emergency staffs, for theater staffs, what the procedure, what the things they follow in this pandemic. Over to you, Farooq.
Right. Thank you very much for explaining how you guys have been handling, the influx of patients, and how you've been kind of trying to take care of the pharmacy staff and all the other hospital staff. Yes, I think compounding a sanitizer locally at your institute is kind of a very interesting thing, because when the outbreak began in every country across the world, the first thing that when that people felt shortages, and the speakers here discussed as well, were the PPEs to begin with. All of a sudden there were no masks available, sanitizers were kind of difficult to get hold of. All the vendors kind of literally refused, saying that they're just too overloaded at the moment. So we have a few questions which are directed to one or two speakers, at the same time. So I'm just going to read them out to you, and then you can reply them individually one by one. The first question is, were there any specific communications or changes in regulations which were prepared or endorsed by the authorities at the state level in Texas? It's for you, Satsa. Or as the same question for Kelum in Sri Lanka.
So if the question is pertaining to general population, yes, the state of Texas is a little bit different from the rest of the country. It's predominantly, had played a major role during the time of Civil War, and Texas was a part of the Confederate. So people, they like to carry open arms. Just to give you an example, they don't like to be controlled. So putting any type of, home confinement laws and regulations, they were tried to implement it, but of course, people were not ready for that. So as far as home confinement, people are wise enough to stay put. But as far as, the regulation of their daily lives, they have enforced upon themselves. And when it comes to practicing, of course, just like anywhere else, medicine, most of the doctors, my friends, they are working from offices, but they are using Teledoc or Telemed or other softwares instead of seeing the patients. Now, having said that, this is not going to be, lasting for a long time. It has already been 2 months, and the unemployment rate has skyrocketed in the United States. Probably already know. There are over 26 million people who have filed for unemployment. So, financially it's not feasible. So those, gradual opening up instructions probably will go into effect within the next couple of weeks. Now, having said that, there is a fear of the second round of this pandemic. So people, individuals, and groups and companies, they are being very careful. So right now there is an order in place that any facility can operate with 25% of occupancy rate. And of course, from a financial perspective, it does not make much sense. So people are waiting for another 2 weeks until 50% of the occupancy rate applies. So that's where we are.
Right. Same question to Kellam as well, if you could address that. You have to unmute, Kellam.
Sri Lanka, actually, we have this National Medicine Regulatory Act. Actually, there's no such changes done during the COVID, but quite a few things, because Sri Lanka actually under OTC there are only few categories, but unfortunately, community pharmacies. Sometimes, even the POM or the prescription only medicines also sometimes, without a valid prescription, there are places which you practice, which we know that we shouldn't do that. But this time it was really strict by the Food and Drug inspectors, and also even on the social media, they were just advertising this, not to give anything, especially the antibiotics, because if anybody comes or anybody complains about a kind of symptoms of a common flu, even not to give other than ascorbic acid or something like anything OTC, not to give away anything. And another thing, for the PCR testing, actually private hospitals were given permission very recently, but even that too only for the in-house patient, because no one can just walk into a private hospital and get a PCR test done. Regulations, I mean, some kind of a changes done recently. So otherwise, there's no other strict kind of regulation changes done due to the COVID-19 outbreak. Yeah.
Right. Thank you. Another example, how the communication, the government communication has impacted countries, or even states, or maybe at the municipal level, is something that actually was shared in a BMJ blog day before yesterday, and it kind of highlighted a very important thing, that Mumbai, India, is one of the largest and densest, the densest slums in the world. The municipal corporation of Mumbai has decided to roll out a 7-week-long course of chloroquine and hydroxychloroquine mass community prophylaxis for the people living in those slums. Now, we all know, the evidence that we have, for these medicines, and using them for prophylaxis is something which is kind of really strange. So yes, while it's extremely important that the governments lay out communication really well and clear, but at the same time, that interpretation at different levels is something that can be really detrimental. And this decision by this council is actually is backed by the announcement that the Indian Council of Medical Research made on the 22nd of March for the prophylaxis of asymptomatic healthcare workers. But here, the local municipal chose to kind of roll out this mass community prophylaxis program, which could have really grave consequences. Now, I have another question for AKUH to Umar. You mentioned that you've been discussing, or maybe doing at the moment, some experimental therapy checks at your hospital. So the question is, what are those therapies if you guys are experimenting? If you could just tell us about that, and also if the AKUH is conducting any international or part of any international clinical trial for the COVID treatment at the moment.
Okay, definitely it's like very obvious around the globe, all the institutions, all the big hospitals, universities, research organizations, they are, experimenting with various therapies. At AKUH, as I told you in my, brief, we are also doing, but what differently what we are doing, we have a program of off-label experimental stewardship committee. We are playing a role of drug experts in managing these trials. The details of the trial definitely I cannot go into, but we are testing and trying all the evidence-based therapies, off labels, definitely with our patients. And as pharmacists, we are, we have a we are doing stewardship of off-label experimental therapies of COVID. That's what we are doing.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much. We have another question. As suggested by many immunologists and virologists and the epidemiologists, this coronavirus has the potential to become seasonal. So, and this is to Mr. Saad in the US. Can community pharmacy play a role in preventing future outbreaks?
So that is, I think, $1 million question. The medical czar here, Dr. Fashi, he said that, it can be a cyclical. So it is possible that when the northern part of United States start becoming or experiencing fall and then ultimately winter again, it is quite possible that it comes back, and it comes back with a vengeance. So, just thinking about it, can send chills through your spine. Right now, what's happening, and this is my personal perspective, you probably have seen that CDC says now in the United States there are over 53% cases that are in the hospital that can be resistant to conventional antibiotics. So overprescribing is something that is not only happening, but we are experiencing and feeling the effect of it as well. So, number one recommendation for all of the healthcare workers, and especially, for the pharmacists, where we have the authority to challenge a prescriber's decision, that if you are starting to treat a common flu with an antibiotic and antiviral at the same time, I have the right to ask, what is, so not only doctors in the hospitals, prescribing the hospital, also people who are practicing as a general practitioner, family doctors. We need to start questioning. We need to start asking that what is the specific indication and why is it being prescribed? So instead of going and having this traditional kind of a shotgun situation, we need to be or become more specific and targeted in our evaluation and finally coming up with the diagnosis and prescription. So I think we are in a very strong role that where we can, and we have this recent example at our hand, that overprescribing can lead towards medications becoming something like a placebo. So that's all.
Right. Yes. Thank you very much. We had a question specifically about the antimicrobial resistance as well. And if Kellam can answer this, we all know that AMR is a huge concern in our part of the world with the availability of all these key medications, obviously. But at the same time, their irrational usage is quite dangerous. So, I mean, what is happening on that front in Sri Lanka in terms of how do you see the outcomes of this COVID-19 on the antimicrobial resistance?
I think Sri Lanka was not so good in managing irrational use of antibiotics, and except few hospitals, others are not even having any stewardship programs also. But I think people, because it's such a way the social media, even from the government on national television, they always they were used to tell about this irrational use of antibiotics recently, and I think people do understand. So now actually we also see it has tremendously come down, where now people doesn't go to the community pharmacist and they don't ask antibiotics in particular. Because but earlier the condition was different. I think because of the COVID, now people has come to know about this resistance, because a lot of awareness sessions done by even pharmaceutical companies and so many webinars, and I think because of that it has come down. That's what I heard from the community pharmacy forums as well. Now the irrational use has been come down, but as Dr. Kasmi correctly said, this prescribing by the prescriber, sometimes over prescribing antibiotics, especially azithro, it's kind of a issue we still see. Prescriptions are coming for especially azithromycin, but though we were ready with hydroxychloroquine, but the government didn't allow people to prescribe, and the stocks are still with us. Actually, we were ready actually when this when from the globally it was saying that this might work out, but it didn't come up. So I think at the moment it's good that people are aware that use of misuse of antibiotics will definitely harm them in future, and they know it's a viral kind of a infection. So I think things. I mean, awareness is really good now. Awareness is really good, especially people are locked down, so they have enough time to watch this kind of awareness session. So I think awareness is so much. So it is under control, Dr. Faru. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. We have another question, which is regarding, another hot topic, which is screening. Now, we all know that, a lot of tests have been talked about at the moment. Either, what's recommended and what should be done with what population. Do you think, and this question actually kind of applies to all four of you, and if you can briefly answer, because we have another 9 minutes, that is there a role of pharmacists in the mass screening of COVID-19? So starting off with Saad.
I'm sorry, did you ask me first or?
Yes, the question is actually to all of you. Is there a role of pharmacists in the mass screening of the COVID-19?
So we actually, I think I kind of alluded to this in the beginning, that being a part of Walmart, we have started a screening, and pharmacists as of now, we are in the first week where we are observing the testing being done. And then later on, I think it will become a part of our voluntarily our job that we will be required to start screening patients. This is being done out in the open in the large parking lots. They're not inside. So, if there is any potential cases, they stay out and then they're being handled accordingly. So we have already started doing that.
And if you could just share which kind of testing is that exactly? Are you doing tests for antigens or antibodies?
What we are doing for the antigens, yeah. Antibodies, they are still kind of, and you probably have seen there was a large discussion on CNN last night that was aired about which one CDC recommended first, and then there was some issues at their labs, and then they kind of retracted that, and then now they're leaning more towards antigen.
Right. Same question to you, Umar, and then Sunny.
Okay, if I talk about Pakistan, pharmacists can play a great role in screening, regarding the awareness. If you can, see around us during the lockdown, all the, the OPDs, the hospital setups are actually closed. People are reluctant to go there. But if you go to pharmacies, you see when you are driving, traveling, you can see, crowds and crowds of people standing outside pharmacies. So as part of awareness, pharmacists can play a great role in promoting screening, mass screening. If infrastructure has been provided by the government, definitely pharmacists can play a great role. And regarding the testing, same answer as Mr. Saad said, that antigen testing is recommended. There are many questions about the antibody ones.
In public sector, Civil Hospital Karachi, pharmacists are not much involved in the testing facilities, but the microbiologists or biochemists who are working over there, they are much involved in this. We are just getting the idea from them what they are doing. Initially, what they did, they are not testing every individual for COVID-19 test. Initially, they started with the symptoms of COVID-19, with the contact history or the travel history. People get tested with them. PCR facility is there in the first phase. Now a rapid machine is there that give you a result within 2 hours, because it's a mandatory requirement from the public sector hospital with every individual who bought debt in your emergency you take the COVID sample. If the test is positive, then burial management through by the government protocols. So these SOPs that we have designed in the initial phase are followed in the public sector hospital.
Right. Same question to you, Kellam.
Yeah. In our case, like all the triaging, all the screening, initial screening is done all by the medical officers and especially the nurses. I think they're doing a pretty good job. Like I should mention here, 24/7, and even for the customers who are just coming only for the pharmacy also been screened by them. And Sri Lanka actually currently in terms of testing, only the PCR testing is done. I think antigen and antibody testing is not allowed so far, but at the moment, actually, at least we are good because we do check about more than 1,000 at the moment. I know it's not enough for our population, but earlier we were doing only 200, 500 tests per day. So though we've been good numbers, I hope it's because if we increase the screening, definitely sometimes we may be able to catch like there are because a lot of asymptomatic patients in the country right now, and there was one patient who got reinfected within a week. Yesterday in the news, it was one of the patients got reinfected again. I don't know, it's a second wave, but it's that was the news yesterday. But pharmacies, for your question, pharmacies are not getting involved in screening in Sri Lanka. Yeah.
Right. I think, as I said earlier, this screening is at the back of a huge discussion going around that, which kind of tests that needs to be done and what exactly it tells us, because with the validity and the specificity, the accuracy of the results that are available in the market at the moment, it poses a huge challenge. Yes, pharmacists can have a huge role in terms of rolling out these mass screenings, but at the same time, it's more important that what kind of results that we draw from these, this practice, because any number of false positives giving you a sense of security, kind of feeling that you are not, you are protected while you're not protected at the same time is kind of that can start an outbreak anywhere. So yes, thank you very much for sharing your thoughts on that. Just one last question, which is, and only the ones which are relevant to it can answer it. That has there any change in pharmacist related interventions into the prescriptions of the last couple of months? Satsab.
So there has been some protocol that's been put in place that whenever there is a susceptible patient that could have been tested positive, or so we not as far as a prescription, but we try to deal with that person even with the symptoms differently than others. So we ask the patients to stay outside, and we try to convince them to go through the curbside pickup or do a drive-through instead of coming inside the pharmacy. So as far as the practice is concerned, yes. And since I think we're at the last leg of this question answer session, I just want to thank PharmEvo for this wonderful program, this opportunity. Also want to just, I think I'm probably one of the eldest among you, want to advise as far as our profession is concerned. Our profession is what we make of it. So be proud of what you are, and we can make a very valuable group of people who are, bringing value to the profession of healthcare. We are at the forefront, and we have taken quite a bit of burden off of others' shoulders. So just wanted to thank everybody for this opportunity.
Thank you very much. If Omar, you can briefly answer, and then we can close this.
Okay, definitely there are changes. As Mr. Saad said, in the outpatient settings, there are guidelines from the hospital leadership, from the infection control department to deal suspected COVID patients with symptoms and definitely guiding them towards the screening centers and the the CHC and the various collection points. So definitely there is a screening section for the COVID positive inpatient areas. There is like a special protocol of PPE and also the medication handling, the credits, the exchange of medicine, the refill process. There are changes in with the background of COVID patients. So that's my answer. And again, in the end, I would like to thank Farmivo for inviting us for this great talk. Nice to meet you, Mr. Saad, Mr. Kalam, and all the other participants. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. Good experience. Thank you.
Right. Coming to the close of the session, I just want to thank the organizers, Farmivo, for this amazing initiative to bring pharmacists from around the world to share their experiences, their perspectives, and how they see this pandemic as challenge and as an opportunity for the profession. I want to thank you all, from Mr. Saad Kazmi from the US, Mr. Kilam from Sri Lanka, Umar from AKUH, and Sunny from Civil Hospital. Thank you very much for all your comments, and also thank you very much to all the listeners and for all the questions that you've put forward. We think pharmacist has a huge role in facilitating an enormous amount of resource to the healthcare systems and controlling and mitigating the adverse consequences which are happening due to this COVID pandemic. We hope to bring you another session with some more amazing panelists from around the world. And thank you very much for all your attention and participation. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you.